My name is TobySeay. I'm a Senior Vice President at Bechtel. I've been here for about 7 years, and prior to that spent about 20 years in the communications industry in the United States. Several years ago I was running a large project across the United States and was looking to hire somebody new on my team, a director level on my team to help manage the project. When I put this number 2 in the role, the first thing that started to happen is I just got feedback from the existing organization. Sort of the, I'm not sure that he's got the bandwidth that he's supposed to have, or boy seems to really be struggling with the assignment. And I sort of discounted that and said, well, maybe people just need to get used to this person. That went on for maybe a month, 6 weeks. But really sort of the watershed moment for me was I got some feedback directly from the customer that they didn't feel that they were engaged, didn't feel that they had really sort of their act together, which was very different than my view of how this individual performed and how I felt that they were doing on the project. And that's when I said I've got a problem that I've got to go figure out how to deal with. It was challenging for me, A, to understand what the issue is, and B, to go to this person and talk to him about it because I didn't have details. So I went out and said, I got to collect some data and get some more information. So to gather that information, I did 3 things. One, I went and talked to people that I knew within the organization that I felt would be open with me and just ask some questions. How is so-and-so doing? Do you see any challenges where they could get better, things that they do well? I didn't want to go on a witch hunt, right, and say, tell me the 3 things that so-and-so's doing wrong. So, but I wanted to see what they were doing well and where they thought they might have some challenges. The second thing is I happen to have a good relationship with this customer, so I felt that I could go and talk to the customer and say, tell me what it is that you're seeing or what causes you to say these things. And I was looking specifically for what sort of behaviors or what was this person doing that was driving them to this conclusion that they didn't have the bandwidth or didn't understand the project. Once I had those 2 pieces of data, I actually went and asked some folks internally in our HR group to say, can you go out and do some sort of 360 interviews, get some data, because I felt like getting a little more data that wasn't directly coming from me would help pull that picture together. And what I got back from folks was sort of this, disorganized, doesn't make a very good first impression. And when I spent time looking at this person's behavior, I would tell you I'd characterize them a little bit like the nutty professor, right? Somebody that shows up in a meeting and they've got all the right answers, but their papers are all over the place. You walk into their office, there's stacks of papers everywhere. Maybe one sleeve's rolled up on their shirt, one's down. They kind of look out of sorts. Once you get to know them, you say, well, absolutely on top of it, absolutely knows what's going on, but their mannerisms were a challenge. And that was one of the things that was really the hardest part for me because, frankly, it was a little bit frightening to say, I'm going to go talk to somebody about their mannerisms. I'm going to go talk to somebody about how they look and appear to other people, and that's a very sensitive subject. I think what made this a particularly challenging issue for me was it wasn't deliverables. It wasn't part of the sort of normal job description. You didn't get this report in on time, or you didn't attend this meeting, or what have you. But it was more the impact this individual was having on people and their first impressions and their inability, due to those first impressions, to be able to lead the team or to instill confidence in the customers. Now I had to talk about what I sort of deemed to be sort of softer skills, right? It was challenging to initially have this conversation about the impression you make on people. So I began to break down then, all right, what are the specific things that I want to see change? What are the behaviors this person has that are causing this reaction he's getting from customers and his team? And then how do I explain what the new behavior needs to look like? So it's time now to have the conversation. I called this individual into my office and said, listen, I want to talk to you a little bit about a couple of things that I'm observing and how you can be more effective. I gave him a couple of things I thought he was doing really well that I wanted him to continue, but then got specifically to an area that I wanted to talk more about, which was his nonverbal communication style and how I felt that could be improved upon because he wasn't. It wasn't as effective as it could be. I could feel him starting to get defensive before I even got into it. So I backtracked a little bit and said to him that one of the things that would be I felt I could do best for him in terms of helping him improve and advance his career is to provide him feedback that's sometimes hard to hear, but I needed his help. And the help I needed from him was to make it okay to have those difficult conversations and to tell me what was on his mind. That actually sort of lessened the tension in the room a little bit. Just me saying, listen, this is hard for me too, and I need your help in being able to communicate this message with him. So that worked well to get the conversation moving. I talked about a couple examples. I asked him to play back for me. So tell me what that means. What do you see there, and what actions do you think you can take in your behavior? That was a way of validating for me that the message got through, or there was some gaps. And in that process, that's really where the two-way communication started working a lot more, because as he did play it back, got maybe 60% of it right, but there were some gaps over here. Now, where he said, for example, when I was talking to him about his nonverbal communication style being disorganized, he said, "So you're telling me I'm not organized and I don't understand what I should be doing every day?" I said, "No, that's not the specific I'm talking about. I'm saying you're appearing that way. I think you do have those things, but it's not coming across to others, and here's why." So it allowed us to have an exchange going back and forth, and that's when I knew that we'd gotten down to the 2 or 3 things that this individual could go work on. We actually came up with basically the code word of sort of nonverbal, where we could, in the moment, I could say to him something like, hey, nonverbal to him, and he'd understand what I was saying. So I said, we agreed on a way to kind of manage that going forward in the moment. If we were walking into a meeting, or I saw him moving towards a behavior that he'd had in the past, that it would kind of be a reminder to him. The other thing we said is we'd follow up, which I did with him on a regular basis, once a month, and what went well, if there were still any gaps, and how I could better help him, and that's how we agreed to move forward. So in terms of results, these things don't happen overnight, but over a period of 6 months to a year, all of that went away, and he was actually seen as one of the strongest leaders in our team. It allowed him to be more impactful and help drive business results for me. It also opened up a relationship where he felt a little more comfortable talking to me about what his challenges were, or where I could help him more, which I think was very positive, made us more effective as a team. It's very easy to talk to people about a report that didn't get in time, or a schedule that wasn't met, or a deadline that wasn't met. It's much harder to go talk to somebody about things in their behavior that impact their performance. And I find that if you can do that, the implication is most people want to know those things. Nobody's ever told them. Nobody's ever given them something to go act upon, and they will act. So the implication is if you tell people, they'll act and improve. In terms of things that I learned out of the experience, first, you got to have the hard conversation as quickly as possible, avoiding these sorts of things and pushing them out and hoping them go away. They'll go away. They never do. They in fact fester and get worse. The second piece is, this really isn't, and it tends to be deemed softer issues. They're really not soft issues, leadership issues, or how you make impacts on people, or how you communicate to others. You can turn them into hard issues, and you turn them into hard issues by gathering data and talking about specific behavior that you want to see changed. And if you can do that, and if I can do that, it makes it much easier for me to impact change and make it meaningful to the person that I'm talking to.